City Council meeting back to order. Ask the record to reflect that all council members are present, and ask Mr. Kildee to please lead us in the flag salute.
Right hand over your heart, ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. Are there any amendments to this agenda?
No amendments, Madam Mayor.
Okay, next on the agenda is public comments. I have one card. If there's anybody else who would like to speak to us on an item that is not, or items that are not on the agenda, please fill out a blue card in the back and turn it into the city clerk. The card I have is from Matthew Lorimer. Tongue twister tonight.
Got to change it up a little bit, Charlotte.
And I'm not going to give you the rules because I figure you know them yet.
I've been warned all my life, so you know that. So before I begin, there's a couple things. I come to the Park District meeting here. You guys rent the hall out. The restroom is locked, and people need to use it, so I don't know who's in charge of that. Can we try to keep it open for the people since they're renting this facility? It was locked. The next thing I want to talk about, I was there. All these carpet tiles are all loose, and a lady almost bit it. As you walk in the chambers outside, every one of these are loose. You guys need to glue them down. I showed the captain over there just to let you guys know, but if you could do something about that, it's really dangerous. If you go out there, you'll see this one is just one of many. They're just, it's a tripping hazard. We don't need any more lawsuits. I'm trying to save you some money. The next thing I want to talk about, Charlotte, I hear you're not running again. I don't know if that's true, but it's been going around. Tony, I hear you're going to the Democratic Club. You're going to talk about term limits. I hope we get the other side to show up too. I like a fair debate. I know you're Republican and you're showing up there. I've heard a bunch of stories in town. Everybody's got their own feelings on it, so thought that was interesting. What'd you say? Oh no, that's fine. The firehouse. I keep talking about it, but now we got another 60-day suspension, another 60 days suspension, or in 60 days to go, or whatever it is. I talked about this with, before about Mr. Norman. I think you should get it done. I don't know why we can't close this deal. I don't know if you guys are asking for aesthetics, you want to use it for the Fiesta Association, I don't know what, but there's no reason why we can't get rid of $1.3 million there. I mean, the park should go too. You should sell that too. But the firehouse, we're still working on that. And I don't think we should give you your raise if we can't get it done. I keep talking about it, but I think you're the general manager, so hopefully we can get it done. Next thing I want to talk about is Dignity Health. This company made $28 billion. They're in 28 states. You guys gave them $500,000. I don't understand it. We need to build a senior center. You got graffiti problems. I don't think getting a plaque on the wall in the hospital is important for city councilmen. I don't think it's important that when seniors have paid their taxes for years, or if you're a family member, you can't have a baby in town because they've closed the neonatal ward. I don't think giving a company that makes millions of dollars, $500,000, is in your best interest or the citizens' best interest. I think it's wrong. I think somebody should talk about it. I think it's, there's people who have problems all the time that come here who have street problems, and I think we could do better with that $500,000. And I think if Dignity Health had dignity, they would not accept that money and give it back to the city because they can spend it in a lot better places. That's the taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak to the city council? Please turn in your card to the city clerk and just pull the mic down and state your name for the record. And
good evening, Terry Bray, Lamplighter Mobile Home Park, Camarillo. I'm here to make a couple comments in regards to what was said not only at the last city council meeting, but some things that came to mind. I have to address fiscal mismanagement, misallocation of public funds, and I say that for the reason of the problems that I continue to have with my home that's in disarray caused by Habitat for Humanity of Ventura County, who once again has received CDBG funding approval through you at $100,000. I know that they became licensed, but the same people that damaged my home that were unlicensed still work for the organization. Mr. Dwyer is no longer the CEO of Habitat of this chapter, probably because his mismanagement cost Habitat close to $100,000 in litigation when I had my suit against them and you. The only reason I lost that case is because I was not able to provide at my expense the witnesses of the written proof I had of the violations. I cannot afford $600 and $700 a day for an HCD representative to be there to validate that they are the ones that crafted the inspection that showed that they damaged my home, that you financed. And that was at the time when they were unlicensed, and they were unlicensed for 34 years, under your guise. You didn't do your homework. That's a misappropriation of public funds. It's negligent, and it shouldn't continue. I've been ignored. Mr. Dennis Fandy, who spoke at the last city council meeting, has been ignored. He's got serious problems and made a statement that was very concerning that the next person that runs through his yard due to the lack of adequate speed bumps is not going to come out. I don't know if you really thought about that statement. Mr. Morgan would like to thank you for thanking Habitat for the work they did at Casa del Norte in 2014, which I believe the city paid $240,000 for that work. There was roofing done, wheelchair ramps, and the same unlicensed subcontractor did the same remodeling in a senior's home, identical to mine prior to mine. There's no inspections because HCD didn't know that they needed to inspect, because permits couldn't be pulled, because you funded an unlicensed general contractor, which is Habitat. Those people are now in peril. You don't know what's behind those closed doors. It's lipstick on a pig. And the reason they don't complain is Habitat's habit is to ask people, go spend time with your grandkids and we'll take care of your house and you'll come back and it'll be beautiful. They don't know what's behind those closed doors, and neither do you. And what's behind those walls, and who did the plumbing. Does it leak like mine? Those permits weren't pulled, and I know that's a fact, and you couldn't pull them because you're not authorized. It has to be done by HCD, those inspections.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, a few observations.
Yes, sir.
First of all, on the $500,000 for the cath lab, I think what's missing in Mr. Lorimer's characterization of that gift is that the majority of the people that will benefit from the use of the cath lab are in fact seniors. I don't know if Mr. Lorimer knows what a cath lab is or what it does, but it is there to assist with heart operations, non-invasive primarily, and many of those people are going to be seniors. And it's when it was brought forward, the City Council, made a definite connection between community health and this cath lab. It's a major asset for this community, and I think it's an appropriate use of public funds. Ms. Bray said that Dennis Fandy has been ignored. That is, in fact, untrue. We will be hearing the issue of the problems at Lantana & Co. at Streets and Transportation Committee next week. And then we will be bringing recommendations from that committee to the City Council on the 27th to help remediate that issue. So Mr. Fandy is not being ignored. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Can I just respond one? The importance of the cath lab is unbelievable importance to this community. Now, if you have a heart problem that takes the use of that kind of machine, you have to be transported by ambulance to Oxnard or the Hill. And some may not make it. But if they have it right here, your chances are much greater. And people, especially senior citizens that know about this, really appreciate what we've been doing. And that was well worth the money spent. So our city stays in good health.
Okay, next we go to City Manager, item A, former fire station extension of exclusive negotiation agreement. Could we have the staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The city of Camarillo entered into an agreement with the Archdiocese of Los Angeles to allow the church to further investigate the former fire station located at 2472 Ventura Boulevard for use as church offices, and to discuss and negotiate various issues related to the possible sale of the property. I have in our packet a letter from Mr. Tom Dwyer from CBRE, Commercial Real Estate Services, who is representing the church. And Madam Mayor, given the comments we've received repeatedly from Mr. Lorimer about getting this deal done, I think it would be appropriate for me to read this letter in total, so please bear with me. This is addressed to me, City Manager. The reason, time extension request regarding former fire station. Dear Dave, my client, Roman Catholic Archbishop of Los Angeles, FBO St. Mary Magdalene Church, is making good headway on determining the cost to restore the former fire station in Camarillo, adjacent to the church property. We have engaged home biotesting to provide asbestos testing of the exterior stucco and interior plaster of the former fire station. We are waiting for this asbestos report, which we expect to receive the week of July 9th. In addition, we are awaiting pricing from our general contractor, Parker Brown Incorporated, which we expect to receive the week of July 16th. Since the beginning of our discussion and throughout our 2 extension periods, the Archdiocese has acted in good faith to conduct due diligence investigations necessary to determine whether a reuse of the former fire station will be economically feasible and sufficient for the church's future needs. Given the building's age and condition, issues have popped up that require continued investigation. With the assistance of RGSE Structural Engineers, Main Street Architects and Planners Incorporated, Pacific Environmental Company, and Scarlett's Landscaping, the Archdiocese has invested approximately $15,000 in the process thus far and is close to completing its due diligence. We appreciate the city's patience and assistance with the Archdiocese's completion of its due diligence. Based on the above, the Archdiocese is requesting an additional 60-day extension in order to review and understand the reports and pricing and prepare a thorough cost analysis to conform with the spirit of the appraised value. We believe that we are making reasonable progress towards the finalization of discussions or negotiations of terms for a term sheet. With this in mind, we find it necessary to make this additional request. Please feel free to contact me with any questions, so forth, and sincerely, Tom Dwyer. Based on this letter, which I find compelling, we are asking for another 60-day extension of the original agreement, plus another city manager authorized 60-day extension if needed to finish negotiations and discussions towards the term sheet. That concludes staff's report.
Are there any questions? In the staff report, I guess I have a question. It says page 1, big page 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, third paragraph under discussion. We're just being asked to approve one 60-day extension. It doesn't say one more.
No, it's one 60-day extension plus another, plus an additional 60-day extension as approved by me if needed.
And where does that say?
Where does it say that in here?
Staff finds this request reasonable. Given the age and condition of the building, it recommends the city manager be authorized to approve one 60-day extension to the amendment to ensure discussions or negotiations of terms of a term sheet can be completed. So when you look in the agreement, under item F, the church has requested that the city agree to further extend the agreement. The purpose of the first amendment is to extend the negotiation period in Section 2 of the agreement for a period of 60 days from the date this First Amendment is signed by the city manager, and to allow the city manager to extend this First Amendment by one additional 60-day period upon the city manager's determination that such an extension is warranted and necessary in order to finalize discussions or negotiations on the terms of a term sheet. And this is similar to the process that was used in the original agreement and the process that's used in all our ENAs.
Okay, that answered my question. Other questions?
That was my question. So I'm just at comments whenever you're ready.
Anybody else have a question? Mr. Kildee?
So, just refresh so is that, potentially extending it for one 60-day period and then potentially another 60-day, or is it just 60 days?
It's a potential 120 days,
Potential 120, okay. All right.
If needed.
if needed.
Can you tell us, I'm sorry, my question, I have a question then. Can you tell us the total number of days then that we have been under exclusive negotiations with the church,
Starting years ago.
starting whenever it started?
Okay. In the first agreement, we had 120 days as the base period, and then there were two 60-day extensions were then granted.
But
So-
that was for doing due diligence. How long have we been dealing with them exclusively?
Exclusively for that original 120 days.
Well, no, that's for due diligence. It's been more than a year 2 years that we've been dealing with the Archdiocese on various things, and we had an exclusive agreement for negotiating.
I think that the first, was the 120 days an exclusive negotiation, and the 260s
two
the
60-day
due
extensions.
diligence? Is that?
No, it's all the same thing.
When we had all these people in here, it was more than a year ago.
It took us a while to get.
Before we ever got to
That's what I'm
yeah,
talking
well,
about. How long have we been dealing with them? And a lot of that was an exclusive negotiation period.
No, it wasn't. Actually,
There just was nobody else.
yeah, it took us some time to be able to get to the exclusive negotiation agreement with them. And so there was a period after the crowd was here that we were working with them and trying to work out an agreement for an exclusive negotiation agreement. So a time had elapsed before we actually got to the formal agreement.
Okay.
And just, sorry, the church, represented by Mr. Dwyer, is only asking for 60 days.
That's correct. I'm asking for an additional 60 days after that if needed.
So we'd then be at 360 days, 1 year.
Any other questions?
I have a comment, but I don't know if you want to.
Okay, no other questions? I have a member of the public who'd like to talk to us on this. Matt Lorimer on Fiber Home, it says?
What'd you say?
It looks like it says you want to talk to us on,
Oh, Firehouse. That's
Firehouse. I'm sorry.
I should have wrote it clearer. Sorry, Charlotte. When did this start with negotiations? 2 years ago. In fact, when I ran with Kevin 8 years ago, Kevin told people, we'll have this wrapped up in a year. It's going to be gone. He told people, Leisure Village, it's going to get wrapped up. I was there. I mean, you guys have had this for 20 years, your negotiation for 2 years. He's asking now for 120 days instead of 60 days. I mean, at some point, people at home got to ask you a question. You have property. You bought it for a restaurant. You've been sitting on it for years, okay? And now you've been in a process for 2 years. You're telling me, Mr. City Manager, it takes you 2 years to look at a bill and decide whether they're going to buy it or not? I mean, this isn't Disneyland. This isn't Fantasyland. When you tell people things, you're politicians. You're supposed to, the buck needs to stop with you. This is like a little ridiculous, okay? It looks like you're holding on to the Firehouse because you're going to attempt a restaurant theme again in the future. I don't know, Mr. City Manager. What are you planning? But the point is, You've had 2 years. My God, what do they need to do? Are they going there with x-rays or what? They got the Martians checking out the building or what? I mean, seriously, it's ridiculous. 2 years. Put it up for public auction. I said that to Jan. When I was out one day, she came over and I was getting term limits. I said, this has been going on long enough. And I said, you guys need to put it for public auction. And you know what her response was? We need to control what's in there. Are you kidding me? What do you think? Well, you approve apartment buildings on one side of the town, so what worst thing are they going to do? Build apartment towns or residential? Or what are you going to do with it? The bottom line is the firehouse is in really bad condition. And whose responsibility it was? Yours. You had it for 20 years and you neglected it. You didn't fix the roof, so it deteriorated. And now you're pointing, well, we got problems. We don't know if we're going to sell it. You know, I mean, what the church is really saying is give it to me for $1. So the taxpayers are out money. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. This sounds like you're going to come back, Mr. Norman, and say we should give it to him for $1 because it's going to cost $500,000. You know something? Put it up for public auction. Whoever has the highest bid, set it at a bid of $350,000 or $500,000. Done with it. Stop making excuses. Stop running this. It's ridiculous at some point, okay? He's a city manager. You gave him an increase. His job is to manage. This isn't called managing when you want another 120 days. He'll come back again and go, well, we need another 120 days. We'll take it for another 120 days. I mean, at some point, grow up. You guys are grown adults. It's time to put it for public auction. Done. Put it up, highest bidder, set a bid, be done with it. That's what you should do. That's called responsibility. It's called leadership. Thank you.
Your Honor, I think I need to say something here. In response to the suggestion that it be put up for public auction, that would be illegal because the fire station is included within our long-range property management plan, and there are specific provisions within that plan regarding the disposition of this property. This property was purchased with tax increment during the years that we had redevelopment agency, so we cannot just put it up for public auction. I have been the city attorney since 2001, and I'm very familiar with the history of the fire station and the significant efforts that the city has made over the last several years in an attempt to sell this property for a redevelopment purpose. At one point, there was a potential restaurant that was going to have an interest. It was American, I forget the last part of the name, and they did have an interest in putting a restaurant there, but then the recession hit and then redevelopment was dissolved, and as a result they withdrew their interest. The city has had conversations with many potential purchasers of the fire station. The most recent conversations have been with the Archdiocese, and it has been the Archdiocese that has been requesting of the city additional time. There has been no foot dragging by the city. The city has been very diligent in dealing with the fire station. I know that I have, and Mr. Norman has, reached out to Mr. Dwyer many, many times to find out what the status of their work on this project is, to encourage them to do so promptly. So this is not on Mr. Norman, this is not on the city, this is not on the city council. This has been an effort that the city has been undertaking for the last several years. And the problem is, it's a difficult piece of property. There's access issues. It is in bad condition. It has nothing to do with the city. So I think that a lot of the suggestions that were made here, that the record needs to be made straight on this.
Your Honor, I'm just glad he brought out the fact that it's illegal to do what he was suggesting. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Okay, Mr. Kildee.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment here, and as most people know, we've been working on this for a long, long time, and it's turned out to be a very complicated transaction here for many, many reasons, not the least of which the building is decades and decades and decades old, and we've got an applicant that's trying to save it. And that in itself becomes extremely complicated, and all we have to do is go back to the Camarillo Ranch and remember how long it took us to rehab that, and quite frankly, the cost, it was a heck of a lot less than when we first started talking about it than what it ended up. But I think it ended up with a really nice asset for the city. Now, as far as the Archdiocese goes, I think the city has done its due diligence with them. Just like the city attorney said, there's been many, many proposals before this. None of them have gone very far until we got the Archdiocese that is very interested in this, and they have been for years and years. And what has slowed it down is many things, and one of it is with the Archdiocese and situations that are beyond the city's control. I don't want to get into exactly what it was, but it was an unforeseen situation that we had to deal with. It put us back a number of months in this situation. They have spent some money, several $1,000s, to see if this will work. We have given them several extensions, and new things have come up that we didn't really foresee that were going to come up. So this is as close as we've really come to really making and seeing if this will work. Yes, I've been talking about this for a long time. I don't think anybody up here is thrilled that it's taken this long. Of course they're not. But it would seem to me that it would be appropriate for us to grant this next extension. However, whatever they need to decide, that seems to be ample time, especially if we allow the city manager to give them to an extra 60 days to see if this thing will work. And I know it's going to be discussed in the coming months, but it looks to me like we're on a track here. I'm hoping we can push it through the goal line here. And with the background that we've got in this, the time extensions we give this, and I do think the applicant is a very legitimate applicant that is really trying to make this work. My feeling is that we do grant them this time with the caveat that, look, there should be ample time to whether you're going to be able to make this thing work or not. And if we have to go to another phase of this, we're very experienced about going to a different phase in this and getting it done. So that's my suggestion.
Mr. Tremblay.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So I've been at this for about 18 months, thankfully not for 20 years. I am frustrated by the slowness of the due diligence. I hope that this transaction proceeds and the property goes to the Archdiocese and to St. Mary Magdalene for a whole variety of reasons. It makes some sense, and we've already had that discussion. But I also understand that the due diligence process here, assessing the existing building, can take some extended time. And echo what Mr. Pierik says, and the ball is in the court of the Archdiocese. Based on the letter that we've received, and my understanding, the Archdiocese and St. Mary Magdalene are acting in good faith. So I'm supportive of another extension this time. Beyond that, I may not be. I'll leave it at that. Think about it critically, though. So what's the alternative? Is the alternative here, don't grant the extension with more due diligence pending and throw this right back to square one? I'm not willing to do that. It seems to me that the prudent thing to do is to, hopefully with this last extension, with the other potential 60 days, and I'm supportive of that, is get the due diligence done and find out whether or not we can make a deal or not, and go from there. But suggesting in any way that we cut it off at this point, which is what the logical import of folks who say get it done, that just means, that to me doesn't make any sense. So I'm supportive of this. I think Mr. Kildee is correct in his characterization, so I'm supportive of his comments and where we're going on.
Before
Staff
I
recommendation.
ask for more comments, generally speaking, once we start council comments, we don't take any more public comments. We did receive a card just now while Mr. Tremblay was speaking from another member of the public who would like to speak. So do we want to hear from somebody else or continue with our comments?
I think we let her, yeah, I think we let her.
Okay, Terry Bray.
That's fine.
I'm still Terry Bray. I still live at Lamplighter in Camarillo. But in regards to this issue, It sounds to me as if the building in the condition that it's in, as it was built, and how it continues to deteriorate, seems to be a big fly in the ointment of being able to move forward on both sides. So, as far as lack of funding from when Mr. Pierick said that there was redevelopment funds, and then that kind of went downhill or didn't become available, or they were taken away, I think, by Governor Brown or something like that, you still have over $300,000 of CDBG funds. And $300,000 of that was voted on and approved by you to do some exterior improvements to apartments that are seen by the freeway because you feel that they look outdated. So with the money that you have on hand, that, I don't know, maybe you'll end up using it on my place if Community Housing Services runs out of money with the funding that you just approved, that you seem to be ignoring a source of funding that you have that can be used to either make updates to this building to make it so they can take possession of it. But the other thing is that it's really appalling that this boarded up structure is seen by hundreds of thousands of people that come off of that freeway exit. And I know that you want to have the city look as good as it can. But that is a super eyesore, makes the city look like crap. And, you know, it's not obvious to the people that come into town, especially for fiesta or whatever, as to really what's going on as to why that building is not being taken care of. So I look at it as, if it's not working the way it is, or if the policy doesn't allow you to deal with it, you have the power to change the policy. Nothing is written in concrete. You have the ability to be flexible and change things that aren't working. But the length of the time that this has been going on is appalling. Yet the construction and the development that's going on in the city is rampant. It's just going at a huge, fast pace. And that this one little simple structure is sitting there for decades. It doesn't make sense, like Mr. Lorimer brought up. But the Camarillo Ranch House, yeah, it took a long time, but now it's a fiscal disaster. So, you know, you want to make sure that somebody who's going to take this building is really going to make good use of it. It's a great compliment to the church that is there. I don't think anybody debates that. But if it's an asbestos issue, which I think was a problem with the restaurant, or anything else, do what you got to do with the funds that you have, make the building inhabitable, get it to the archdiocese who wants it. They're going to treat it right. It's going to make the city look better, and move on. But you don't have to stay stuck in the mud from where you're saying you have these limitations. You have that flexibility.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else with any comments?
I have a question following up for that. If the city attorney might address whether we could use CDBG funds for this project?
I don't believe so. Perhaps Mr. Moe can weigh in on that.
No, CDBG funds for this purpose would not be prohibited, or would be prohibited under HUD.
Thank you. It would have to be, I guess if you're making it housing, maybe. A comment
Mrs.
for me?
McDonald.
This has been very frustrating for all of us, and one of the comments lately, and the last speaker, was we can change the policy. Oh, if we could bring back redevelopment on our own, wouldn't that be wonderful? So many of these things that we're having to abide by are state laws imposed upon us, so there's sometimes whether we'd like to be flexible or not, it's not within our ability. I would agree with the previous council members who've spoken that we're so far down this path you can't stop now and walk away from it. The one thing that I might suggest differently is that the church or the representative is asking for 60 days. So rather than basically automatically giving them 120 days, I would suggest that we give them the 60. That's what they asked for. And then at the end of that, bring it back to us instead of giving the almost automatic 120 days. Because you add that up, I mean, we are talking about almost a year under an exclusive negotiation, and that is a long time. That would be my suggestion, is just to simply give them what they asked for, 60 days.
Mr. Morgan.
There's an old saying, patience is a virtue. Camarillo House looked terrible for a long time, even after we bought it. But we fixed it, and someone just said look what bad shape it's in. That Camarillo House is in fantastic shape.
Fiscal shape.
Huh?
Foundation's in fiscal bad shape, she said.
Okay, it's not. It's not in fiscally bad shape either. It's in good shape. Now, main thing is, we went through that. Have got a beautiful asset to the city of Camarillo now. Tons of people here, weddings, everything, go to that house. We had 2,200 people show up the other day for the truck thing that they have once a month, the food truck thing. There was a band there that was fabulous. So we had 2,200 people show up, and it was great. It was a great performance. Anyway, that's turned out to be a true asset for our city. This is what I think will happen with this house, given its time. There's no other option right now. I mean, we'll tear it down. A lot of people don't want it torn down. We don't have any other option right now. We've tried everywhere to sell it to other people in the past. And so we have no option. I think if we just wait, it's going to happen. I'm frustrated just as much as you are. And we've sat here long, you have, Tony, going through this, and I know what you're talking about. But I think we're right on the verge of having things happen. And he will probably bring it back automatically if he needs an extension. That's what he normally would do. It's not just automatic another 60 days. I think he'll talk to us about it first.
Hasn't in the past.
Let me ask the city.
If he doesn't, I'm going to ask that he can bring it back.
Let me just ask, because in the past, for the other 2 60-day extensions, you did not bring it back, if I remember correctly.
No, that's correct. Authority was given to the city manager to extend.
So if we approved it as you requested, and is in the resolution, or whatever this is, the agreement, the First Amendment to the agreement, then that would be automatically extended. It wouldn't come back to us.
Right. If I felt that it was necessary to extend for 60 days to wrap up the negotiations, to bring you a deal, I would do that.
Would you not talk to us on the side or otherwise to tell us what's going on?
If he
I mean,
wants our opinion on it, we'd have to
I
bring it
think
back.
that he yeah, I know. I'm just saying to you, sometimes he'll tell us things through the memos and stuff, what's beneficial and why. And he alerts us to the fact of what's causing that to happen.
There is one
I
thing.
want that to happen. Yes?
There's one thing I should mention. What it says is that the extension by the city manager can be for a period of up to 60 days. So
Up to, yes.
it doesn't necessarily need to be 60 days. So, for example, if they're very close at the end of the first 60 days and they just need another, week or two, then a full 60-day extension wouldn't be
Yeah, I'm sure he'll tell
necessary.
us on what's going on. It's not just going to be let it wander. And I know I have more patience. I mean, we're more confidence in Dave alerting us.
Are those your comments?
No, I didn't say he's going to tell each one of us to tell the others. He always gives, they'll give memos about what's going on in the city.
I'm just asking.
Now,
Okay.
so why did you mention Brown Act? That's not even close.
Just have to be careful.
That's not even close.
Depends on.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, I'm
Anyway,
asking.
what I'm trying to say to you is that be patient. We're going to have a nice place there once they get it rolling. And I think the Archdiocese, Kevin mentioned the part about they had some problems, we know about them, that were hard to predict. And now it's rolling. They're testing the building, they're doing a lot of things. And so I think they're going to move forward. That's all.
Could I clarify one thing, or I'll ask it as a question, but we keep comparing this to the Camarillo House, and the Camarillo House is basically public use, belonging to the city, being public access. This is destined, as I understand it, as being offices for the church. So this isn't going to be created into being a public space.
Well, that's right. If it's sold to the Archdiocese, then they would own it and operate it for office and related
And I think
uses.
there's more than office. I think they're doing some food share stuff there too.
Yeah, I don't know the details of that. I don't think we've gotten that far into it, but
Well,
I know offices are one of the uses.
Other uses.
Okay.
Offices.
I have become extremely frustrated over this. And my whole frustration didn't just start with the exclusive negotiation, but before that. Because I think it was like 3 years ago that all those people were here. And we waited and waited, and we've waited on the Archdiocese for a long time. My preference would be 160-day extension, and that's it. But, of course, if 3 council members want a 60-day extension with another one, with the city manager to have the ability to have another one, that's fine. But I will tell you, If we go 120 days and it comes back, I will vote against it. I think that sometimes things have gone on so long. Everybody says, oh, we have to be patient, it's going to happen. If they find too much in this building, they could pull a plug on it, and we would be in the position of having to start all over. But I think they need a fire lit under them, I really do. Those are my comments. What are the wishes of the council?
Your Honor, along those lines, I would make a motion to authorize the city manager to execute the First Amendment to agreement number 2017-96C regarding former fire station between the city and the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Los Angeles, St. Mary Magdalene Church, with the change that it be simply a 60-day extension.
Is there a second? This changes what is in the packet in the First Amendment to the agreement.
Can I make a comment before that? Would the individual that made a motion, would she be willing to consider a 30-day extension? And I just say this because let's say if they really...
Let me ask first if there's a second, as it was said,
okay.
and then... Okay, apparently there's no second, so now Mr. Kildee.
So I'm going to ask let me just make a statement here. Would there be interest in approving a 60-day negotiation period with one 30-day extension for the simple reason is that if they get up to 58, 59 days and they just need another week, that give them 30 days, and that should be ample time, in my opinion, to whether or not it's going to work or not.
Well, since there wasn't a second on my first motion, I will make that my motion then to change the agreement to include a 60-day extension with an additional 30 days at the discretion of the city manager.
And then to be specific, in section 2.2 of the amendment, which is at big page 4, the last couple words there say 60 days, so the 60 would be changed to 30.
The 30.
Is there a second? Okay. There's a second. Okay.
Actually, no, I have a question. So, no, I guess it's more in the form of a comment. So what will happen over the course of the next 60 days, at least, minimally, will not just be a completion of the due diligence, but an expectation that a negotiated, completed term sheet will be finalized for presentation to the council. Remember, we've got two, as I see it, we've got two components here. We've got the completion of the due diligence, the asbestos testing, the structural engineering, all the stuff on the physical part of the building. And we've got the negotiation of the term sheet, which, in my experience professionally, can also take some time. So that's why I styled this as a comment. My expectation is that we would have both of those items done within the next 60 days, but allowing for a 30-day extension at the city manager's discretion.
For a total of 90 days.
For a total of 90 days, and I'm willing to go forward on that.
If I might, in reading their letter, I think that's what they're saying too, isn't it? That they talk about the term sheet being completed. So I think, again,
It's in there.
and giving them that extra 30 days, okay.
I would just like to make sure that they understand that we are resolute on that in terms of our comments.
Maybe that's the direction we should
expectation.
also give the city manager, to let him know that this is kind of it.
It says right here.
Well, I could add on that we've already started the outline of a term sheet, and the reason that it hasn't been put in final form is because they have not yet completed their due diligence. We will be able to promptly turn around a term sheet. There will be absolutely no delay on our side with respect to putting that together.
Okay.
I think you have a motion and a second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, that brings us to new business, oral communications, informational items which do not require action. will be reported by members of the staff and city council. City manager? City attorney?
No items.
Mr. Kildee?
Okay. I did have one meeting, VRSD, and as I was driving down Daily Drive, there's a lot of trash, and it's mostly coming, it looks like it's up against the chain link fence. I have to say, it looks, I got out of the car and actually looked at it. It's actually on the freeway side, but it's getting pretty, somewhat egregious there. Is there anything that we can do maybe to see if we can get a cleanup crew or something that we could go out there and see if we can clean that up a little bit?
So that is Caltrans' responsibility, and we are in regular communication with Caltrans. They have a regularly scheduled trash pickup along the freeway. It sometimes goes a little bit longer than is ideal for trash pickup. So we will contact them and see that they can do some trash pickup sooner. There are some volunteer groups that pick up certain portions. We maintain the Springville interchange portion, so we tend to keep that looking really good. But we will contact Caltrans and follow up on that.
Okay, it's mostly, I've noticed it's mostly plastic bags. A lot
You
of
said
plastic
along
bags.
Daily Drive. Can you give us an idea
Yeah.
of where?
Daly and Carmen, and right in that area. Daly and Carmen, right
Going
by,
north or
going,
south?
Going
Santa
west,
Barbara?
if you will, going towards Oxnard. If you're going west on Daly Drive, off to the left.
Understood.
Yeah. If we could look into that,
Okay.
that would be great.
Anything else?
And is there any way, because I don't know, as I've been driving, maybe it's the time of the year, that there seems to be a lot of littering out car windows and whatnot. I don't know if anybody else has noticed this. Maybe it's just me, but maybe in our city scene or something, we might be able to put, look, let's keep Camarillo beautiful and not litter. I know we do that, but if there's a way that we could do it on our reader board or whatever we can do to remind people that, somebody's got to pick that litter up. Yeah.
Okay. Mrs. McDonald?
Yes, meetings. VCOG admin meeting, and we have our VCOG meeting tomorrow. And at that, one of the major topics will be, we have a representative from the League of California Cities, and we're going to be talking about legislation that's going through and the pros and cons, what's passed, what's hanging out there. But one of the other discussions that we're going to have is the league itself. So the question I have for any of you, if there's any questions you want to ask, if there's been situations where perhaps we didn't get the needed attention we needed or wasn't able to get any answers to questions or anything you'd like to ask of the league, it would be an opportunity to do that. So I know there's been a couple of times from the legislative side that we've wondered why they haven't taken positions on things at certain times. So if there's anything, if you can let the city manager know maybe, although it's tomorrow at 5. So I've kind of made a list of the things I remember us talking about, but it is the opportunity to kind of have a nice discussion with our league rep. And the other one I did yesterday for the mayor, and it's a nice luncheon to go to, was the luncheon put on by the MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving organization, recognizing all of the officers in the district attorney's office who prosecute the drunk driving and the officers who make the arrests. And the top officer of the year was from the Santa Barbara Police Department with 160 drunk driving arrests.
Wow.
One officer. So our hats off to all of them for the great job they do every day to keep us safe, and it's a nice recognition. There was a room full of, I have no idea how many there were in the room, but they're from San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Ventura County. So we're very fortunate to get to host it at Spanish Hills, and it was a nice recognition day. And again, members of the Ventura County Sheriff's Department were recognized as well. And fortunately, they didn't have 160 DUIs to arrest in Camarillo. We didn't have nearly that many. But we had a few, and a few is too many. So,
Mr. Morgan?
Your Honor, we had the Air Pollution Control District meeting was continued because of the holiday, and so was the Association of Water Agencies. Both were continued because of the holiday period. The food and truck thing, I reported this once to you way back when we had that first one, but the food and truck thing at the ranch was fantastic.
It's called Throwback Thursday.
Anyway, the food and truck thing at the ranch was 2,200 people showed up, and we had a band there that just terrific band, and they donated their time. 3 of them are retirees from Edison, because they kept yelling Mike, and I was kind of figuring where that was coming from, but they're all retirees from Edison, and they were with all their horns and things. They were fantastic. People sent notes back saying, "Did you see that band? They were so good." Anyway, we had a good time, and the ranch did well that night. Movie at the park. I got to tell you, I wasn't going to say anything about this, but I thought Roger Rabbit would be just
It's Peter
but
Rabbit.
Peter Rabbit. I'm sorry, Peter Rabbit.
Roger Rabbit was a different movie.
This movie was one that even I enjoyed. That was really terrific. There are tons of kids out there. And so it's one of those you hear about it and you go, nah, I don't see that. But it turns out to be really good. The ribbon cutting, did a ribbon cutting representing the city at Happy Bowl. And that Happy Bowl's food now is fantastic, Asian food. And you'll go back. So give them a try and see what you think. 4th of July, Charlotte did a spectacular presentation on your address to the people there, welcoming them. And I was MC, so I had to work up there all night trying to, hopefully we didn't have a problem, because I get it when it happens. But the show was spectacular. It was a great night. Everyone enjoyed themselves. Again, it's 25 minutes? Last year's was great. Well, this one was pretty close to it. So I got to say we had a good 4th of July. Ranch House Foundation, we had a meeting. Charlotte, I'll leave that for her to talk about, since I won't take talking at all. What's coming now is the Fiesta, the third largest event in Ventura County. And this year it's going to be probably the best one, because we got things like motorcycle show on Saturday, which we've never had. Harley Davidson. When I told them about it, they said yes. And they've got tons of bikes will be out there. So we'll have a fantastic motorcycle show with different clubs, not just Harley Davidson. And then we'll have the car show, carnival, 2 band stages. It just goes on. And Wells Fargo stage will be back again. So it's going to be a tremendous fun time for us. And it's been a lot of work for those volunteers on this committee that just, no one gets paid. Everyone just donates their time, and there's a lot of time to get this to happen. So please come out, enjoy yourselves. We have a VIP room for our sponsors and so on. You're invited. It's at the Chamber of Commerce. They donated their room on the right, behind the band, or behind the beer garden. So if you need some direction, go to buy your info booth, and they'll give you all kinds of stuff. Okay. We also are working with, by the way, Old Town. Old Town's working with us, and they're giving us coupons to give out at the information booth to shop at their stores and all that. And they even donated to us. So we're working real well together now, and the Boulevard's doing well. So that's it, Charlotte.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank those of you who pitched in for me, especially Jan on extremely short notice. I only learned late Friday and on Monday morning when I needed to have a chunk taken out of my arm, and I appreciate you on short notice going to that mad luncheon to welcome them on behalf of the city. I have a question. I've been thinking about this all along, but I guess this is for the commander. Is it required that children on, I think they're called razor blades, wear helmets?
I don't know what the
I know they have to have bike helmets. Okay. There are a lot of kids out there, not just on the sidewalks, but I've seen them on the streets in the bike lanes without helmets. They're all over quite a few of the shopping centers, especially those where there are hills coming down right in front of cars without the helmets. And I know our July city scene is already out, but I was thinking it was required. But very few of them have helmets. I attended the 4th of July ceremonies, too, at the high school, and they were fantastic. I also know a family that has a baby, and they were afraid of going to the high school because of how loud the fireworks were. And so they went to Pleasant Valley Fields, and unfortunately the sprinklers were turned on, which was too bad. I got a question on Mr. Tremblay and I attended a business visitation for a natural latex company. Very interesting company. They haven't been here that long. They make mattresses. They make high-end mattresses, $5,000 up to, I think he said, $20,000, with plans to go to a higher level. More than I paid for my first house. A little above my class for a bed when you start talking about $20,000 for a bed. But at any rate, there are a lot of people who buy them. They are shipping out 50 beds a day. And some days much higher. So they're shipping all over the world. As he put it, their lower class bed is the $5,000 one that they're selling on Amazon, and they're selling a lot of those, but they're also selling to a lot of hotels at the much higher level. Probably the hotels are above my class too, but
It's not
at
Marriott,
any rate,
don't worry.
they
make their own.
they must be comfortable. But
Did they let you test them?
no, well, you ask about that. You couldn't test them because they're made, they're cut, and then they're put into a compressor. They're rolled up into a thing like this. Even the coil box springs are wrapped up in a box and sent out to you. Now, well, you also get a CD telling you how to set it up. Anyway, that isn't where I was going with this. Where I was going with this is they are in a multi-tenant building that's behind one of those that was the warehouse for, help me, Technicolor. I brought this up before, but it is a real problem. We've got to do something about signage. We need to relook at the sign ordinance. Something is not working out there. There were, including the assistant city manager and me, we walked all over the place. We drove all over the place in different vehicles, and we were both on our way driving back to City Hall when I saw John Fraser walking up. And he led us across. And I had driven around that part of the parking lot. Part of it is we do allow them to have their company name etched into or something on top of the door of their building. The problem is we also require a lot of landscaping that covers up those names. We are not allowing them to have signs out in the front. Because it isn't in conformance with our sign ordinance. And something has to be done. People have to be able to find our businesses.
But that's not a retail place, is it?
Yes.
Oh, you can go in.
So is Big Dog or Bad Dog or whatever that one is. Same building, different part. But Bad Dog's got signs all over that I think they're not supposed to have. But the Big Dog? What is it?
Bulldog.
Bulldog? Well, you know,
I know what you're talking about.
Whoever they are, they have signs all over, but everybody else tells me they're afraid to put them up. So I've been to several openings out there and had a hard time finding it. This company is planning to, and I suppose it's in the approval stage of some kind, but they're allowed to have the general public come. They're not just, it's not just a wholesale outfit or a manufacturing outfit. And they're going to have a showroom where you can go and try out their beds. And I'm not just talking for this business, but we really need to do. There's another one where even though we had them put up a directional sign with all of them here and there up in the front, but all those buildings behind the community foundation, it's really hard to find your way back there because the markings on the buildings aren't aren't real good. You got to know the number, and the number isn't big enough to see from a distance. So, anyway, that's my comment on that. I want to talk about the Ranch Foundation meeting last night. In case anybody wants to go, it is called Throwback Thursday. Not sure where they got the name, but it is a food truck event. They always have music. Sometimes they have old cars, sometimes they don't, but it's the last Thursday of every month at the Camarillo Ranch. And so that's one event they have. Another event that they have that's coming up is called Tales at the Ranch. It's from 6 to 8 p.m. on July 18th, and there are going to be a lot of things going on before. You can tour the house, and then later on you can go into the barn and hear people talk about the way it was. And speaking about the way it was, they have another function. It's called Tea and Tortillas. Mm-hmm. And Tea and Tortillas is something they thought of just this year. And it was going to be just through July, and now it's going to be July and August. It's every Friday from 11 to 1. Isabel Camarillo was English and Spanish. A lot of people don't know that, but she made her own tradition of tea and tortillas, not just strictly a tea. So they have the ranch staff. They have a lot of different functions, and they have a lot of new staff, and they would like people to come and get to know them better, and just come in and sit and chat at Tea and Tortillas with Jam on any Friday in July and August from 11 to 1. So I'm going to pass these down. And the general public is invited, not just the council. So that's my report. There were some other things from the Ranch Foundation Board meeting last night, but they were mainly business things. I have one. Oh,
Charlotte, we did recognize our new member last night too. That was appointed.
Luke Cardella.
Luke Cardella, really great guy.
I notice the medians where part of them we're working on, and then part of them we're not. And I think it's like from we're not working on that yet, and maybe a little farther down. They're getting a lot of weeds in there. So if it's going to be a while before they start really doing the work on that part of it, could we at least get the weeds out?
Sure, yes, we can do that. And they are continuing to work north. It should be a matter of a few weeks to a month or so that they'll...
Oh, okay. I thought it was going to be longer.
No, we're moving right along to get it done as soon as possible.
Okay. Thank you. The last thing I have is an article that was in the Acorn, and it told me, I had been asking about what was going to happen and to get reports from the ad hoc committee on the senior center or park improvements or whatever you call them. And it told me that the board had a special meeting, the park board had a special meeting to make a decision on what they wanted to do. And I was kind of surprised by that because I had thought the ad hoc committee would be reporting to me, and then I found out the ad hoc committee doesn't meet till next week or sometime. But what really bothered me about this article, after I was already bothered about that part, are two paragraphs. And one of them says, doing nothing is not an option, and doing something too small would be a mistake, board member Neil Dixon said. So the board members advised the 12 members of the public in attendance to put pressure on the Camarillo City Council to help fund the new venture. The district and the city split the $89,000 cost of the senior center needs study, but council members were similarly upset about the large price tag. And then it goes on to tell how these 12 members of the public were urged to put pressure on us to help pay for their funding. And I just want to tell any Rec and Park members out there, that's not the way to get my vote.
Can I make... We do meet, I was surprised too. We meet on the 19th.
Next week.
And I was as surprised as you. I did not know they were moving forward without going through the committee as well. And so we knew nothing about, at least I didn't know. I don't know if you did, Mr. Trimley, but I knew nothing about it and was very disappointed as well. And I would agree with you. It's, if we're trying to work together, that's not the way to do it.
Nope.
Certainly. Yes, I'm sorry. I went ahead and got mine out.
Start with that subject.
Okay, so as the other part of the ad hoc committee, could you make your report? I
was not aware.
apologize.
No, that's okay. I was not aware of it either. And so Mrs. McDonald and I will be present at the meeting on the 19th and have a discussion at that point. Those are my comments with respect to that issue. I'll have more to say at another time. Just some events since our last council meeting. First of all, I want to give a shout out on the July 4th fireworks, particularly to our city staff, to Kathy Talley, as well as Tully. But I know that Kathy Talley in particular put in an awful lot of effort on the fireworks, and they were terrific. And actually, I think, I don't know, I looked at my watch, maybe I was wrong. To me, it looked like it went either 26 and a half or 27 minutes. 27. Okay, so my clock was wrong. So next, I had the business visit with the mayor on July 6th to Natural Latex Company. And that business is, as the mayor has described, it is an e-commerce business, but with some hope for retail. They moved here from Moore Park. And I want to echo the mayor's comments with respect to signage. That whole area, where they're located basically is behind the Technicolor building. The address, common address, is known as 3233. And Mr. Moe and I were able to locate and get there. We didn't have to traipse through the whole area. But that said, I don't know if there is one common fee title ownership of that whole area or not. But it would be helpful, particularly with regard to folks who are trying to find Bulldog liquidators and other businesses. It'd be helpful if staff could think about how we might more appropriately sign that area. I don't know whether that's a monument sign, maybe not, but something to be helpful. Thirdly, I was happy to represent the mayor at the Channel City Kennel Club competition last weekend at Cal State University Channel Islands, where I think it was about 97 or 98 degrees. And we were lucky enough to see the group judging for Australian Shepherds. Kathy and I have always had Golden Retrievers and Yellow Labs, so that was a new breed for me. I do note, though, that they had 40 Golden Retrievers in the group judging competition. But anyway, I was happy to be there on behalf of the mayor on that one. Okay, my two comments were with respect to the signage along Mission Oaks. And the second was, can we get an update, Mr. Norman, on when the Economic Development Strategic Plan is going to be coming back to Council for public review and adoption and moving forward with implementation? Because I know it's something that's been worked on, and I know no one has lost sight of it, but I would like to keep our momentum going. So if I may make that inquiry.
He's writing a note.
You're asking me a question right now.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase. Mr. Norman, what's the status of the Economic Development Strategic Plan?
Okay. We have finished the 30-day public review period. Tully and I are going to be working with the consultant to make some minor modifications to the text. We'll be bringing it back to you in study session probably after the August break. And then after that, you can adopt the plan, and then we can start implementation.
Okay. The one thing I forgot to say about tea and tortillas is the tortillas are handmade that morning by the wife of one of the staff members at the ranch. Okay, so we have finished our comments. We did not finish our study session, and we didn't get into our closed session, but we still have the words under which we can adjourn or recess to a closed session. So at this point, we will recess to study session and closed session. There's no announcement probably at the end?
We don't expect an announcement tonight.
Okay. After that, we will adjourn.